Say it with me now. $1 million in student loans. I didn't even think it was possible, but I found an article that proves me otherwise, so let's jump right into this. All right, ladies, gentlemen, let's break down this article for you really quick. Here we have Mike Muro, the man himself that has $1 million in student loans and sits in that 100 group. And I'll tell you what I mean by the 100 group in a sec. But how did this happen, guys? Escalating tuitions and easy credit have yielded a class of student loan borrowers with spectacular debt they may never repay back. And now this happens because of uneducation in finance. And let's read through this article and see what we can't learn. So, Mike Muro, a 37-year-old orthodontist, made a big investment in his education. As of Thursday, he owed $1,060,945.42 in student loans. Mr. Muro pays only $1,589 a month, not enough to cover the interest to his debt from 7 years at a university of the Southern California, which grows by $130 a day. In 2 decades, his loan balance will be $2 million. I can't imagine having that kind of interest. He and his wife, Melissa, have become numb to the burden, focused instead on raising their 2 daughters. If you thought about it every single day, Miss Muro said, you'd have a mental breakdown. Due to escalating tuitions and easy credit, the U.S. has 101 people. There you go. 101 group of people who owe at least $1 million in federal student loans, according to the Educational Department. 5 years ago, only 14 people owed that much. How the heck does the government allow these kids to take out this massive amount of money? It's staggering. More could join that group. While the typical student borrower owes $17,000, the number of those who owe at least $100,000 have risen to 2.5 million, nearly 6% of the borrowing pool. So just imagine that 2.5 million people owe over $100,000 in student loans. I just think about like the money I have in my account because I have over $100,000, and I think about how long and how hard I had to work to get that, and I couldn't imagine having to owe somebody that much money. It's like you think about like the mobster movies where people would break your legs for that kind of money. Anyways, for graduate school students especially, there is a little incentive for the universities to help put the brakes on big borrowing. Well, of course, because the universities are the one taking the money. The government essentially allows grad students to borrow any number of covered tuition and living costs with few guardrails on how the final sum will be repaid. More than a third of borrowers from one of the government's main graduate school lending programs have enrolled in some form of federal loan forgiveness. Can you imagine 1/3 of the borrowers? I mean, that should be a big sign right there that 30% of the people you're loaning money to need forgiveness programs. Like, oh my goodness, painful. Looking at this little chart on the left, though, I love this chart because it shows you what are the highest cost per tuitions for getting into what kind of field you want to get into. And it's crazy to think that dentistry sits right at the top with law. I thought law and doctor would have sat at the highest, but it turns out dentistry, well, I guess dentistry is somewhat of a doctor, but at the same time, I never thought being an orthodontist would put you right at the top there, but it turns out don't go to school for dental. It's kind of crazy. Let's keep scrolling through and see if we can't find anything more interesting. So for Mr. Muro, the USC first went up during his second year. Interest rates followed. Halfway through the dental school, he said he started to worry about the soaring cost of his education. So even while he's in school, the cost is going up. It's like you couldn't even contract it. They're like, now that we got him roped in for the next 5 years, let's jack the price up every single year because we know we're just going to take it from the government anyways. I'm sitting here saying, holy crap, should I really be doing this? Mr. Muro recalled. Should I drop out? I wonder how old he was when he went and got this education. So Miss Muro, 35, said she and her husband decided it was too late to turn back. If he quit or transferred to a cheaper school, he still owed for the loan he already taken. Mr. Muro's financial records provide to the Wall Street Journal showed he borrowed $601,000 of debt that swelled to $1 million by fees and interest. The $1 million orthodontist bill. Mike Muro took out $601,506 in student loans and became an orthodontist at the University of Southern California, with interest accumulating at the rate of $130 a day. His debt continues to grow past $1 million. He has repaid $39,000 since consolidating his many student loans in 2015. Now, the USC education helped Mr. Muro earned $225,000 last year working for a corporate practice in Draper, Utah, 20 minutes from Salt Lake City. That compares with $158,000 median income for a dentist, according to the Labor Department. So it's crazy to think that he's making $225,000 a year, but he's not paying enough to keep up with the interest. Because you think with that big of a shovel, even if he's putting $100,000 toward it a year, with those interest payments, he should only be paying it off in 10 to 15 years, which is an incredibly large amount of time. But it sounds like he's a guy that doesn't want to deal with these problems. So here's an interesting image of the family. As we take a look, they're standing amongst million-dollar homes. And I'd love to see what his house costs and where he's funneling all of his money instead of into his loans and the poor situation he put himself in here. But I just think this image is funny because look at the homes in the background. These homes look like they're worth millions anyway, so I wonder if this is the neighborhood that they live in as well. School was a good investment given the salary he expected to earn. We're like, well, we can make this work, Miss Miro said. There are certain things that are okay to go into debt for: a house, an education, and even a car. Yes, but you thought to yourself, well, if we make good enough money, we can pay it back. But now you're making good money and you're not even paying it back. What is going on here, guys? If we scroll through, the couple's calculations were partly based on low interest rates the federal government set for the student at the time in 2004-2005 school year, and the rate of college and graduate students was 2.77%. The following school year, Mr. Muro's first at the USC rates jumped to 4.7 from his loan. Those turned out to be the cheapest of the 50 loans he needed to finance his education. Oh my God, 50 loans. Given some grace here, most of Mr. Muro's debt came from Grad Plus, a program created by Congress in 2005. It removed loan limits and allowed grad students to borrow for any expense, including rent and other living costs. The law signed by President George W. Bush was, oh my God, this is all the way when Bush was still president, was intended to ease student reliance on private banks, which had more strict repayment plans. Well, duh, because the bank doesn't want to lose money, but the government's like, we don't care. Now, don't get me wrong. I know I'm making fun of this guy, but I think it's important we shine a light on the exuberance that has become student loans thanks to the government making it easier and parents pushing people into an education younger and younger, whether they can afford it or not. And don't get me wrong, guys. I took out a $22,000 loan when I was 19 that I wish I didn't do. I had to learn. It took me 3 years to pay that back, but thank God it wasn't six figures or $1 million. This is something that I think is ruining the economy, and it's something that's very important that we all wake up to at a young age to maybe find a passion before we take out debt. I think it's more important that we spend a few years in the working world, save up some money, find out what we want to do, and if what we want to do requires an education, then by all means, go and get an education. Just don't take out so much bloody money, guys. I mean, it's the same thing whether it's from the bank or from the government, but for some reason the government is just so foolish with it, which, I mean, we all know that anyways. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know in the comment section below what you think. Do you have student debt? Have you been through a debt cycle? Like, I mean, how much debt have you ever taken out at one time? And maybe you're in debt now, and you guys just need a little bit of help. And I would recommend scooting over to Dave Ramsey. He was the one that kind of tracked me onto this $1 million loan, and then I found a different story in relation. But this is just some educational stuff, guys. So stay cool, stay awesome. I look forward to chatting to you real soon.